I started hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
Everyone in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker. Few would live to see what he became.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.
As a Jedi, sometimes you have to make the decision no one else can. But I'm counting on you to see this through.
We are no Jedi.
This is the Rebel Force Radio Ahsoka After Show.
May the Force be with you.
Well, that's just the question, isn't it, right? Who is Jedi? What is Jedi? Who can be Jedi? Those of us in the original trilogy generation thought we knew, and then along came the prequels. And that changed things a little bit. But did it? Was that George's intent? That's one of the topics I think we'll be covering, because this episode certainly brings that up as we see the training of Sabine, or the continued training, because we believe that there was training prior to the events of this series, and so we're seeing a continuation of that. Great to be with everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the program this week, Rebel Force Radio, the after show for Ahsoka. Hope everyone had a chance to see the episode. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, why would anybody listen to or watch an after show and not having seen the episode? I've seen it in the chat. I've seen people say, I didn't watch it yet, but I don't want to miss the after show. Or we'll see people drop by the chat and say, I just wanted to say hi, and then they split and they catch the replay. So we welcome all kinds here on the RFR after show. And to prove it, we got this guy here. My good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Happy to be back with another Ahsoka after show. Action-packed after show. I hope, following an action-packed episode of Ahsoka. That's for sure.
Yeah. There was, after last week, I got to say, I was talking to Tyler a bit before the show, and I told him, I said, it was a little overwhelming. There was so much character stuff and so much exposition to have to kind of chew through. And I went back and I listened to the program, and I realized we were awesome, as always, and it was great. And Tyler was great. The callers were great. But there was just a lot. I am looking forward to the focused nature of this week's episode, because I think it'll be great it won't be overwhelming to kind of go through all the big story beats and then look at some of the big issues that this episode, I think, brings up, including what I was just mentioning, Jim. Who is a Jedi? What is a Jedi? Ahsoka's no Jedi. Baylan Skoll's no Jedi. Shin Hati's no Jedi. What about Sabine? Is she Jedi? I don't know. Everyone's claiming it. Everyone's running around going, not it. No one wants to claim to be the Jedi.
Well, you know what? Order 66 changes people's approach to being a Jedi. That's
true.
You don't really want to broadcast it. Yeah, sure, I dress like a Jedi. I do all the Jedi things, but not a Jedi.
Yeah.
Put those rifles down. I'm not a Jedi.
Well, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the tale of the tape. No surprise that this was written by Dave Filoni. I think we're going to find that Dave wrote the whole series, all 8 episodes. I would be surprised to see another writer's name in there. We are talking about season 1, of course, part 3, Time to Fly, directed by Steph Green, who directed part 2 last week. Of course, Kevin Kiner once again with the score. Original air date, for those of you listening to this in the future, was August 29th, 2023 on Disney+. And a very short runtime. Disney Plus website lists it as 36 minutes, but that counts the 5 minutes of credits, including all the international credits and all that. So this really came in at right around 31 minutes. And that even includes the preview, from last week. So a short episode. I mean, one of my first thoughts, Jim, was, wow, if Dave Filoni is trying to recreate animation in live action, he certainly did it with the runtime. But then again, I remembered the old trope of show business, leave them wanting more, and this did leave me wanting more, because as they did that close-up on Baylan Skoll, I had this feeling like, oh, no, this is it, credit. Like, no! No, I needed some more.
Well, I'll tell you what. If they parse out the budget for this season per episode, that might explain why this episode was only a little over half an hour. Is because it was packed chock full of cinema-worthy special effects, space fights, dog fights, battle sequences. It was just great. It was really great. And so I think that might have something to do with the runtime.
Yeah.
And also, who wants a bunch of filler? I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Action, action, action. That's the way I like it to unfold. That's faster, more intense.
Yep. I don't feel that this episode had any, if at all, filler. You had 3 or 4 major story beats and not as much of that exposition that I felt slowed the first 2 episodes down. This one I thought was faster. I thought it was more intense, and including the very first spacewalk battle in live action Star Wars ever. We saw that a few times in the Clone Wars. I remember old Plo Koon being out on one of the Jedi starfighters, I believe, fighting off some clankers. But never in live action Star Wars have we ever seen a character actually out in space, much less wielding a lightsaber.
Right. You know, I think Ahsoka did some spacewalking in Clone Wars as well. But yeah, this was really something to behold, having Ahsoka come out onto the hull of the ship and duel with starfighters. I don't think we've ever really seen that before. The closest we may have come is seeing Luke use his saber against the blasters coming from the speeders on Endor. But who has stood there with a saber and taken on another ship, another vehicle?
I can't think of anybody.
But Luke Skywalker stood in front of the AT-ATs in The Last Jedi, but that was a force projection anyway, and that's very complicated. Right. But who has ever stood there, like in front of
not
a
starship?
starship?
Of this thing, jeez.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, right in front of the Eye of Sion.
Well, I guess Rey took on it when Kylo's TIE fighter was chasing her down on Pisana. She did sort of like a backward flip over it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I guess she faced it.
That can kind of count.
Yeah, but that wasn't like this.
No, that wasn't in zero gravity outer space. No, sir. And that's the other thing is gravity. Gravity seems to be an element that doesn't slow down the Jedi whatsoever. When they're dealing with the pull of a planet or something, you know, they always do things to defy gravity.
Well, so even their force jumps is a defiance of gravity. Yeah,
absolutely. When they're levitating, all that stuff. So I was wondering why Ahsoka didn't employ some more force technique when she was walking out on that hull. Why she didn't pull maybe Princess Leia Mary Poppins and fly back into the ship.
Boy, was I glad she didn't.
Yeah,
I was thinking of that salt and pepper shaker just kind of going across the sky.
So, I've never heard her refer to that in that sequence, but it's very appropriate. I'm glad they stayed away from that too. I mean, it's been done once already, but you know, it's something to think about. Like a Jedi should be able to overcome zero gravity, just like they overcome gravity.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right, though, about the quality of the VFX in this one and doing something that we've never seen before. And this is a great example of that. Never seen that before in Star Wars. And I got to say, I like the fact that Filoni he's got to be so confident and sure in what they did in animation that he sees no problem with doing it in live action. I think for him to completely back away from some of the more fantastic things that you do in animation, in some ways could delegitimize what they were doing, because he always wanted the animation stuff to stand up, you know, with the features in terms of the laws of the universe and the lore and all of that. So I kind of felt like this was Filoni saying, yeah, that's right. I'm the same guy that did all this stuff, Clone Wars, Rebels, and here it is in live action. So I really respected this. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I really liked this sequence. I thought it was awesome.
Oh, I thought it was great too. And I mean, you can nitpick it to death, but it was, to me, a classic Star Wars sequence. It had that entire sequence in space just did it right, in my opinion. The dog fights, did you notice a similarity in the way in which Shin and those other, in Marrok and those other starfighter pilots, and when they flew in, it very much resembled, to me, it had the vibes of the escape from the Death Star in A New Hope, when they have that dogfight shootout with Luke and Han in the gunner seats.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just
absolutely.
The way it was cut, the editing
Yes.
in it gave me huge vibes. The way, like, two starships would peel off and leave one just going straight still. It just, to me, it had incredible New Hope vibes.
Yeah, and of course Sabine was in that Luke Skywalker role, even down to the I got one.
Right. That was yes. That is exactly what I'm thinking about. And just like in the visuals of it, when the cannons from that hyperspace ring were hitting the shields on Ahsoka's starship, there were these like clouds of dark smoke that would pop up. The shots would just barely miss. And you could tell it was hitting the shield because there was an impact and you'd see that smoke. And yeah, I know you don't see smoke in outer space, but this is Star Wars.
We don't have sound in outer space either, so you'd have no TIE fighter roars. So enough of that nonsense.
I mean, you can nitpick this stuff to death. It's all make-believe. So, I mean, to base it so harshly in reality is a mistake. But
it is a mistake. It's a weak argument. Yeah, it's a real weak argument. I mean, you're not going to win. You're not going to win any arguments about sci-fi or sci-fi fantasy by saying it could never happen in the real world.
Right. I mean, and who even wants to do that? This is escapism to begin with. What I loved also is when Sabine ran down into the gun turret. Ahsoka said, "Hey, you're a little rusty," and like Huang kind of gave her a side look, like, "Hey, that's offensive." Rusty. You say rusty to a droid.
Yeah,
that's about as offensive as it gets. So I thought it was pretty funny how there was a reaction shot from Huang when she said that.
There were references all through this episode, callbacks to A New Hope in particular. I mean, we have to obviously call out the training sequence at the beginning with Sabine, Hu Yang, and Ahsoka as well, down to the putting the blast helmet down, which, by the way, when she put the helmet on, I kept thinking, like, I feel like I've seen that helmet before. And I started thinking about Kanan's helmet. I'm like, I think it was like Kanan's helmet. And then I looked and I'm like, no, it's not really like Kanan's helmet. And then I thought about the Jedi Temple Guard helmet that he wore at one point. That's a little closer.
That's more like a hockey mask, though.
Yeah, but I've come to realize, no, it's just a blast shield helmet. I mean, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything remarkable about it other than she just happened to have it on the ship. So I don't think there's any heritage or history to that particular helmet. But I was looking.
It's 1977. I have been wondering what the rationale is behind having a solid plate that comes down in front of your face on a helmet. Why they call it a blast shield? So you think, well, maybe it's to protect the face and the eyes. If there's going to be, you're going to be detonating something or what have you.
Right? Yeah, I'm with you.
Can you just go like this? Why do you have to have a specific helmet designed for it? And why is the Star Wars galaxy just rife with them?
Yeah, they really. Everyone's got
on a helmet. Who puts on a helmet not to see anything? I mean.
Yeah, well, everyone's got one. I thought the same thing you did, which is that it's to protect you from like blinding levels of light. But how do you have the warning to know that you're about to get hit by blinding light. Hold on, let me put the blast shield down. I mean, I guess in some circumstances, I don't know.
I was just going to say it looks like a fencing helmet, and I saw somebody else in the chat mention that too.
Yeah, it does.
Mitchell
It
and
does.
Katie Sparks looks like a fencing helmet. I thought that too, but I just didn't want to say that without giving them a shout out so they didn't think I stole their idea.
Well, actually, the chat is sort of just like our chat GPT. It's our AI, except it's real people. And so, I'm not above taking credit for their good ideas.
You know what we should do is just an entire show where you and me converse only by reading chats.
That sounds like a good challenge.
We could only. So I'll start now. What is that icon on the training helmet? And now you say LOL.
LOL. Chut chut, y'all.
That's a Jedi.
Yeah.
That's a Jedi symbol.
Right.
It doesn't appear to be the one we've always seen. It has a minor variant there at the bottom. So maybe it's like a Padawan helmet. Maybe that's a symbol for Jedi Padawan. I don't know. It's a training helmet, though.
Yeah, it's a training helmet.
And that's why they're masked in that instance, is because they're using it for training. Kirei, Gaiki, Kisei, Yoki, Yate, Kirei, Kisei, Gaiki.
Aren't those all characters from Super Mario Brothers?
I don't recall ever hearing those terms in Star Wars before. There used to be certain levels of lightsaber discipline, but I don't ever recall the Kirei, Gaisi, Kike. Anybody in the chat, are you aware of this sort of terminology being used for Jedi lightsaber training in the past? And then Ahsoka brings up the Zatoichi technique. But Huang's like, nah, she's not ready for that yet. But what is that? What's a Zatoichi?
Jeff says it's Pig Latin. I agree,
it could
Jeff.
be. Now, Zatoichi,
I agree.
or is it Zatuichi? There's a Japanese character named Zatuichi.
Oh, wait a minute. Wildfire 371 says those are all terms from the Godzilla universe. And of course, that's no surprise given Filoni's love of the Godzilla verse.
So what context would they have been used in Godzilla?
I don't know. Wildfire 371, tell us. What's the context? Are they characters, creatures? What are they?
We're turning the show over to you guys this week. You're going to entertain us for a change. Zatuichi is a blind swordsman. So there you go. Whoops.
Zatuichi.
That's what Ahsoka was talking about. Blind swordsman.
Okay. All right. Well, why they figure that out? It's Star Wars Japanese. That's all. That's
yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. Zatoichi is a classic character from Kurosawa.
Zatoichi is from a Kurosawa film.
Yeah.
All right.
So he's just throwing a bunch of references in there.
Well, I hope he keeps it at that, because I've heard some people saying online, "Oh, they're all moving so slowly. Why are you guys complaining? It's a Kurosawa film. Don't you see that?" I'm like, "Oh, I thought it was a Star Wars show." There's one thing George Lucas did, and he used influences. But he didn't completely just change everything to fit those influences. He used the influences to fit into his story, not the other way around. And with Filoni, I kind of feel like we're getting it the other way around.
Yeah, you don't want somebody to ape it too closely.
It's one thing to use it as an influence. It's another thing to completely adapt it and make it the gist of everything you're doing, down to the character movements, down to moments in the show where they're doing the training. When they're training, they're using Japanese training swords, those bokens. Those are wooden training swords that Japanese martial artists use in Kenjutsu.
Oh, the wooden swords. The wooden boken sabers. By the way,
we've seen Ray Park use those in the past.
Yeah, Zatoichi. It's not Kurosawa. So stop filling us with bad information. It is a fictional character from Japanese cinema, however.
Oh. All right, well, we're done turning over the show to you guys now.
See, you lost
had
our
your
trust.
chance and you blew it.
Yeah. Apparently, it went from the 60s to the 80s, played by actor Shintaro Katsu. So the point is, though, he's throwing a bunch of Japanese words out there, references, and linking them to various saber styles or moves within a particular saber style, fighting style.
Zatoichi is the art of blind sparring, as was shown when Ahsoka Tano made Sabine Wren wear a visor helmet.
Stop. I don't care anymore.
ComicBasics.com. We're getting our lowdown from ComicBasics.com.
Yeah, but see, I'm getting mine from don'tcare.com anymore about that.
Yeah, let's talk about Star Wars.
Let's talk about Star Wars. So she does have the same reaction, by the way, that Luke did. You know, with this blast shield down, how am I supposed to fight? So definitely a big callback to A New Hope. She's having those same issues. I think, Jim, the fact that Filoni is being... Here's the thing I feel we can say about Dave. You may not agree, we may not agree with every choice that he makes, but I refuse to believe that he does it without a lot of thought, particularly when it comes to linking back, hearkening back, referencing the classic films, classic characters. So to give Sabine a line, Luke Skywalker's line, to put her in Luke-type situations, probably more... maybe even more so than Rey in terms of how close they resemble each other, and certainly in this episode, it's got to be for a reason. I think Filoni wants us to be thinking about Luke Skywalker when it comes to Sabine. I really do. I mean, otherwise he'd run away from that. He'd run away from that stuff. So that is, I think, a larger question here, which is, how do their journeys resemble each other? Obviously, they're quite different, but there are some similarities. The one thing that I feel like we're seeing for the first time since Luke is taking somebody from, zero to hero. And Luke, yes, he had incredible pedigree, lineage, all of that. But at the same time, he didn't know. He was so far removed from it. He couldn't have been further removed from it, at least in terms of who was raising him, what he was raised to believe, understand. So he had no reason to believe that there was anything special about him, at least what we saw on screen. Now, who knows what we'll see as his story is perhaps told in additional, who knows, TV series of his own or something. But he did not have any kind of, it's not like Anakin, where we watched him in the pod race. Yeah, Luke could bullseye womp rats in his T-16, and there were some stories about it, but nobody was running around saying, "Oh, this kid's special. He's something. He's got a lot of he's got a lot of ability." So, in the same way that Sabine is she's going to have to start believing in herself and her ability to tap into the Force. I think that does mirror Luke a little bit. Yes, Luke was, to use your term in our text thread earlier, yeah, he was sort of like a Michael Jordan. He had the talent. But he didn't know he had the talent. And that, I think, made his journey even more impressive, because he had to start believing in himself and all of that. And so that to me is sort of mirrors where we see Sabine, as she admits, and Hu Yang is more than happy to back her up, that she can't feel the Force, she can't reach out, she can't touch the Force. And then you got Ahsoka saying, all living things are can tap into the Force. Just takes focus, takes determination, training, all that. So
I want to know, and again, this is one of those things that has happened off screen, much to to our disappointment is the fact that we never get to see the moment when Ahsoka sees Sabine as a potential Force user. We don't know where this is coming from. Now, Ahsoka, very accomplished. She'd done a lot, especially before she was even 20. She was a Mandalorian warrior. She was a bounty hunter. She was an Imperial cadet. She was an Imperial weapons designer. She's a rebel.
Mandalorian, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, part
so,
of
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot to have.
Family. Yep.
So when did it happen? When Ahsoka was like, oh my God, I'm sensing some Force ability in her. When did that happen? Why is this happening? Is it happening out of desperation just because there really aren't that many Force users and Ahsoka believes that she can teach the disciplines to Sabine? Now, we've seen this in the past, of course, because General Grievous revealed that Count Dooku trained him in the Jedi arts. But Grievous had the advantage of being mostly cybernetic. So the idea of him being able to learn Jedi techniques isn't so far-fetched because he has the accuracy of his mechanics. But with Sabine, now, I mean, we've seen her do great things in the past. So it could be something just as simple as that. You've done great things in the past. Do you think it could be the Force guiding you? Gee, I don't know, but I'd sure like to learn. Okay, well, school's in session. Let's go. We don't know what happened there. And we don't know what happened really to separate the two of them. Other than the hints that we've been getting, Ahsoka says Sabine is headstrong and stubborn. And so Ahsoka obviously had some issues with that. Part of becoming a Jedi Master is showing the ability to train a Padawan into knighthood. You won't become a Jedi Master unless you achieve that. You have to achieve that. So what is and Ahsoka doesn't consider herself a Jedi, and the Jedi Order no longer exists. And there's been probably 3 or 4 examples in these first 3 episodes alone of Ahsoka making it very clear that she is not restricted by the boundaries of Jedi law.
That's exactly right. She has a conversation with Hu Yang in the cockpit, and I believe this is when it happens. And he talks about Sabine and how doesn't have those abilities. In fact, Ahsoka is sort of admonishing him for saying that to Sabine because it obviously is going to and did rock her confidence and all of that. And he says something about it's not the Jedi way or it's not the way of the council, or he was hearkening back to the old days. And she said, well, you can see where it got them.
Yeah, right. She slowly turned her back on the Jedi.
Right. So this could also be her way of saying, I can do this better. This shouldn't be about nobility of midichlorians. This shouldn't be some class system depending on your blood type. This is about focus. This is about hard work. This is about understanding the living force. That's something that Qui-Gon was very much an adherent to. I think if Qui-Gon had lived, I think Qui-Gon would have been more of a democratist when it comes to force use, and probably would advance the idea that it belongs to everybody. So maybe this is in counter to that hubris and arrogance of the Jedi.
Yeah. I just find it sad that Order 66 sort of validated Ahsoka's decision to walk away from the Jedi Knights, Look where it got them.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't there that day.
Yeah.
And also,
yeah.
Also her desire to train a Padawan outside of the typical Jedi law and in a very unorthodox way may also explain why she didn't just simply take Sabine to Luke. Because it appears that Luke is gung-ho on reviving the Jedi Order despite their failures, despite their flaws. And Ahsoka appears to be completely opposed to that.
I'm glad you brought this up.
That's probably why Ahsoka doesn't really hang with Luke too much. Sure, they know each other, and man, would I love to see a Luke Skywalker show up in this series.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Possibilities there. Well, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, because I don't think they've really answered. I mean, yes, this takes place around the time of the events of Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and the other Filoni-verse shows. But when exactly is this? I've heard people say, oh, this happens in between Mandalorian seasons 2 and 3. I think this matters. It doesn't just matter because of what you brought up, Jim, which is her introduction to Luke Skywalker and Grogu and all of that. Are we seeing an Ahsoka that has already done that? Secondly, are we seeing a new Republic government and a new Republic chancellor that is aware of the plans of Moff Gideon? Because I think that determines how we judge their reaction to the Thrawn threat.
Yeah. I think this is post Gideon. This is post Mando season 3.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's been made clear.
Oh,
how's
it been made clear?
The way they line things up on Disney Plus, they put them in a chronological order.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Okay. I love how confident you were with that. We'll go with it, but
I'm confirming my but I'm almost positive that they do it in a chronological order, these shows.
Because I'm willing to be a little bit more forgiving of the New Republic, the senators there. Not so much Mon. I mean, I think Mon gets it. But when you think about what the galaxy had been through for the past, well, I mean, the Galactic War had been going on for, I mean, the big war, I mean, since the Battle of Yavin had been going on for 4 or 5 years. We're about 4 or 5 years past that. And so I start thinking about, our own history and the way people felt after World War I. World War I at the time was the most bloody, brutal conflict the planet had known.
It was a great one, Jason. It was the big one.
It was the big one. And so when the Nazi threat started to become a concern, there were a few people like Winston Churchill who started banging the drum. But because the countries, Europe in particular, and the United States, others had been dragged through this horrible war, nobody wanted to even think about it again. They were giving Hitler a pass at various turns because the thought of doing this again, first of all, how many men were killed? It absolutely decimated the young male population in a lot of countries. So just the idea of it was just so unpalatable, they were willing to look the other way. And so that's what I was thinking when, if you look at the way they handled this threat that Hera warns them about with Thrawn, they just, no, it can't be. They sound so naive. Like the one senator says, oh, but they all take oaths of loyalty. Yeah. So of course, what could go wrong? Oaths of loyalty.
Those
but
oaths.
And then Hera says, well, long live for the Empire. That doesn't necessarily sound like patriotism, to the New Republic to her. So I do think that it's reasonable to think that there are people out there at this time that just don't want to see another huge conflict. So they're scared. They want to avoid it, stick their head in the sand. And also there's the possibility when you look at this, is it Xiono?
Xiono, yeah.
Xiono, who's the father of Kaz. From Resistance. Why that was it?
Right.
That's a deep cut, Filoni.
Yeah. That one really is. I was pretty. When they said, Senator Xiono is in there, I was like, ooh, Xiono. Wait, who is that? Who is that? I know who that is. I know who that is. Before the guy said another word, I was like, oh, okay, that's Kaz's dad. Okay. All right. So yeah, a deep cut for sure.
Yeah. So you got this guy, and he's really trying to deflect, and Hera finally asks him, were you in the war? And he's like, no. Yeah. And he's like, oh, did you just wait and see who would come out on top?
Right.
So there's a lot of, we call that being a grifter. You just go and make money with whomever, whichever way the wind blows. Yeah. So I think you're seeing two different sides. I think you got the female senator who does want to just naively stick her head in the sand and not open up to the idea that there could be a big conflict coming, another one. And then you got Xiono, who, according to Hera, is just grifting off of whoever's in power.
Yeah. The politicians, man, they have the same similar cynical attitudes that they had during the reign of the Empire. So, I mean, nothing has changed politically necessarily with the shift from an empire into a new republic. And also we saw that we saw the Senate in action during the days of the Republic prequel era,
Yeah.
And those guys were ineffectual and completely corrupted, and they didn't do anything either. So for as much as the galaxy can change as far as leadership goes and democracies and empires and all that, the politicians are the same. They are the same. They always put up roadblocks. They're cynical. They always want something for themselves.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. The challenge with this is, this is the challenge that I had with Mandalorian season 3 and parts of season 2, but it was more in your face in season 3, where the New Republic is just so feckless and pathetic and sad and weak and wimpy. And it's like, geez, what did we fight for? Are these the people that Leia, Luke, and Han backed? It just seems pointless, like, oh, you just exchanged. It's like, hey, meet the new boss. He's just like the old boss. And I know that is a reality. I do know that's a reality, but I wish that the storytelling in this era of what we're seeing would give us some heroes outside of just, the token Jedi and Chancellor now, Mothma. Give us some heroes, because even during the Empire's reign, we had people like Bail Organa and other senators that were loyal.
You have Hera.
Yeah,
she definitely qualifies.
Yeah, but I mean, she's military. She's not in the government. She's military. Yeah, she's not in the government. So obviously, Star Wars hates politicians and politics. So I can't say that I blame it. I can't say that I blame it. But it would be nice to see the New Republic offer something better, and I don't see that. I don't see that it does.
Well, it's not like a switch can just be flipped.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Takes time.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate nature of it all. However, Luke does say in The Last Jedi that there was a period of peace and stability in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. He says that for a time, there's balance to the Force. Well, we haven't seen that yet.
No.
We have not seen it.
Right. No, we really haven't.
And this show takes place 4 or 5 years after Empire Strikes Back.
5 or 6
so we're still
years.
in a kind of a fragile area here. But when we get to the end of these series, this Filoni-verse era of Star Wars, are we going to see the peace and prosperity that Luke spoke of in The Last Jedi? Well, I would hate for them just to ignore it.
You would think that it would be a relatively boring show, right? You need conflict.
Well,
so
I mean, there would
one of the challenges.
It would be a downtime for Star Wars for sure. But I mean, that's when you wrap things up with this particular era. I mean, these eras of Star Wars just can't go on forever. You're gonna, there's only so much milk in the cow.
Right. Well, that's where you could probably do some smaller stories. And not have them on a galactic scale, because the galaxy is largely at peace, but you would want to then plant these little seeds of unrest. You'd want to start seeing these things because it does start to fall apart. Zork Player 1 says it reflects real life. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It does. So I again, just not to beat the point to death, I would just like to see some flicker of life and goodness in the New Republic, but I don't see it yet outside of the great Mon Mothma. Always great to see Genevieve O'Reilly in the role. She owns the role. She is Mon Mothma, and so it was fun to see her show up. And what can we learn from her appearance? She knows Hera well enough to reference her son Jason. Right? There was a little bit of small talk.
What a lame name, Jason. Why do they name a character Jason? What is that? That's
I know,
so
it's
lame.
awful.
Who is Jason? What's the deal with Jason? Is he the son of Jay? I don't know. That's so
Here he
stupid.
is. Here he is, complete with his green hair.
He does have green hair. It's not obnoxiously fluorescent bright green.
No.
It's much more toned down. A lot of people were talking about that Lego minifigure of his.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was shown in a box, and it appeared he had dark hair. And even here, it appears he
It had
has
green
dark
highlights
hair.
in the Lego fig.
Oh, he did.
He did have green
Okay.
highlights. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
But what do we know about Jason? Well, they revealed that he has a reputation for getting in trouble with Chopper. I think anybody who hangs out with Chopper will find themselves in trouble at some point. But right here, you're showing a picture of the moment when he says to Hera, I want to be a Jedi. Foreshadowing? Is this foreshadowing? I mean, he is the son, after all, of Kanan Jarrus. And we know that the Force can run strong through bloodlines. So I think him just uttering those words, I want to be a Jedi, he'll be Ahsoka's next Padawan following Sabine. And the Sabine thing is not going to work out. That's also
okay.
my other prediction.
You're calling it now. Sabine's not going to
calling
work
it
out.
now. The Sabine thing isn't going to work out, so Ahsoka is going to shift to Jason Syndulla. That's my call. That's my prediction.
Well, aside from him having the absolute coolest name in Star Wars, I think he's going to end up going to Luke's Jedi Academy. I think that's going to be the sad sort of like when he goes off. Like we'll see that at some point in in a future series, and we're like, oh, we know how that ends. Like that's where we'll know the fate of Jason Solo. So it'll be kind of a tragedy. Or Jason Syndulla, sorry, not Solo. Old habits. Yeah, right. By the way, this is a
Jason Solo.
This is a call-in show. I do want to make sure that you get the number here, 708-866-1737. So if you're within
I'm going to call in.
Sounds of Jimmy Mack has some points he'd like to make. Well, Jimmy should have to call in with his final thoughts. What do you think about that?
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Get in the queue. 708-866-1737. So if you are within the sound of our voices live here, please give us a call. If you're listening on podcast, it was too late. We already did it. So, don't call. You have to leave a voicemail. But we love to have those voicemails.
Yeah.
So 708-866-1737. Patreon members get advanced placement in the queue, and they are all screened by the great Tyler Page. Tyler joining us as always, the official call screener and show observer. Tyler, good to have you back with us once more.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
The beard is looking good, man. That is something else. You could
full
probably
bloom.
pull a boat with that hair. Look at it. It's so thick and lush. Man.
Yeah,
Wow.
call and talk to me for beer tips, even if you want to do that.
Beard tips. That'll be a new podcast coming to RFR Patreon. Beard tips with
Rebel
Tyler.
Force Radio. Beard tips with Tyler.
Beard tips over beer. All right, man. Well, good to see you. And I see we've got a pretty good switchboard already, but we do want people to call in. We'll catch up with you in a little bit. 708-866-1737. That is the number, 708-866-1737. We'll get to your calls here in just a few. But a few more things we would probably we would like to put on the table for discussion. What else we got here? Oh, Hera the diplomat. While we're talking about Hera, discussing this with the members of the, they had a name. Did anyone catch that? This council? Was it
was
the
a
Security
committee.
Council?
It was a committee.
Was it a committee?
I thought it was a committee. You know how the Senate has all these committees?
Right. House and
Somebody was
News
asking,
or House
somebody's
and
asking,
Ways.
well, why isn't Leia there? It's like, well, she might not be on that committee. It's as simple as that,
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
She can't be on all the committees. We mentioned Ziono. There's also Senator Mawood and Senator Rodrigo. They didn't really come up as being anything significant for me. I don't know if anybody else saw. Some of these characters have these obscure backstories.
Rodrigo?
Yeah, Rodrigo. Is that ringing a bell?
Just the singer Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh, Jeff Holland with the win. I am not a committee.
Right? Damn it, Holland. I was supposed to say that.
I love it.
And I forgot. No, good for Jeff. Good for Jeff, because I was going to, whatever.
You can't get all the good lines.
How did I not follow up with the I am not a committee? Because I thought about it earlier. Well, good for Jeff, because that's too good to leave off the show. But yeah, Leia was very specific about that. That's why she wouldn't be there. She's not a committee. Thanks, Jeff.
And we got the Grand Senator there. But this is, again, we mentioned this last week, but how cool it is to see them on the set of the Home One and thinking about that great scene in Return of the Jedi where they're getting the briefing by Mon Mothma on the Death Star 2, or about the Death Star 2. So just cool. I love the reuse. That gets me. Yes, it's nostalgic. And that's one of the reasons why I hate to overly criticize Book of Boba Fett, because it gave me all those Tatooine and Jabba's palace feels. I'm just a sucker for those classic locations, I
had met Gerald Home, who played. Wait, no, that's not who I asked this. Or maybe it was. It was somebody from Return of the Jedi. It was either Gerald Home or the guy who played General Madine, Dermot Crawley. I had spoke to one of those two gentlemen years ago about the size of the sets in Return of the Jedi. And I wanted to know how big the Jabba the Hutt set was, the Jabba's throne room set. Because I thought that was a big set, right? And it was Gerald Home who played Squidface, among many other roles. He told me, he's like, no, that wasn't the big set. The big set was the war room on board the Mon Calamari ship. Oh, really? That was a big set. See, I would have thought it was the other way around.
Me too.
I thought Jabba's throne room was a big set. And I thought the Home One set was kind of tight and confining, but according to Gerald, it was the exact opposite.
Huh. Yeah, I never would have guessed that. Because Jabba's set just seemed so big, and there were all the alcoves and stuff like that. Yeah. And it kept going on forever, because past his dais there, you went down and that was where the band was. Then you went further and that's where Han was on the wall. I feel like I could walk it.
It's all
in my dreams.
The illusion of filmmaking. My friend. That's what it was. You were seeing a lot of these people doing their thing in the same spot, but you just didn't know it by editing and the angles they used, etc.
So Hera tries to convince this council, this committee, to help her or give her the authority to go and find out what the hell Elsbeth and these other two are doing. And Ziono, if he's not doing it on purpose, it certainly looks that way. He is obstructing. You can tell he's not into this. He cut the small talk at the beginning of it. And then, of course, we learn later, after they deliberate amongst themselves, that they're not going to endorse it. You can tell that Mon Mothma is uncomfortable with that. She's uncomfortable with Ziono's attitude, but she's got to keep all these senators happy. And there wasn't one senator that seemed to be on Hera's side at all. They're not curious.
They're so feckless and impotent,
aren't they?
It's something worth noting that before Hera walked into that meeting, she was warned. Hey, Ziono's could be in there, and she's like, son of a. So that demonstrates there's some bad history between the two of them. There's some friction in their past. So I think this Ziono cat doesn't want to hear anything Hera has to say. Yeah. But we don't know what that tension could be because it hasn't been revealed to us. More mystery box BS going on here with this show. See, I think it's so. I'm not going to just rag on Filoni or anything, but it seems unfortunate that the only things he learned from George Lucas were how to make it look like Star Wars, and he took all of his storytelling cues from J.J. Abrams, it feels like. You know, don't have a plot, just give them a bunch of quests to go on, and provide a lot of nonsensical mystery where in every scene of this show, I'm scratching my head going, why? And filling in the blanks. Every scene thus far in these 3 episodes.
Yes. There is a magic to the simplicity of George's 2 trilogies.
Yes, and that went over Filoni's head. And nobody's saying George Lucas is like
maybe simplicity isn't the right
storyteller or anything.
But maybe simplicity is not the right word.
Impact.
It's more straightforward. George told a very straightforward story, and you're like, yeah, but he bounced around, and did 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, he did not get bogged down with backstory, really to a fault in some ways. But then all the tie-in material came in and filled in all that backstory stuff.
But all that backstory that you're talking about that was filled in is like, which trilogy are you talking about?
I'm talking about both trilogies, actually.
Okay.
Very straightforward. He didn't get, the one trilogy was backstory to the original trilogy, of course, but it still told a very straightforward, linear story with big beats and not a lot of, I can't think of, the only mysteries that I feel were left on the table were the ones that we sort of conceived as being a mystery and George chose not to even address or answer in the prequels. Mm-hmm. But I don't think those count as mystery boxes because I don't think they were little traps that were laid for the audience.
Well, like example, the Dagobah Cave, the Cave of Evil.
Yes.
Never an explanation for that. And I think that's preferable because it should be something that we provide our own interpretations of. And it doesn't, like mysteries like, for instance, my father didn't fight in the Clone Wars. He was a navigator on a spice freighter. What's the Clone Wars? Well, who cares? All that does is just display a history between Ben Kenobi and Luke's father at that point. And that's all we needed. The story was focused on Luke. Never once did I ever say to myself, what's motivating Luke here? Why is Luke acting this way? Even though, like, who is Luke Skywalker? Even though there was that twist in Empire Strikes Back, the I am your father thing, that was revealed to the character at the same time it was revealed to the audience. Thus, the impact.
Yeah.
And we could go on that emotional journey with Luke. In the Ahsoka show, I watch it and I say, why is Ahsoka so dour? Why does she have none of the personality or spunk of her younger self? Why? I don't know who Ahsoka is. I don't know what's motivating Ahsoka even. I don't even know what the goal for her is. Find Thrawn, find Ezra, stop a war. Okay, but that's not a story.
No, it's not quite as simple as rescue the princess. That's simple. Right.
Yeah. Rescue the princess, destroy the Death Star, go on the hero's journey in the process.
Yeah.
That's true storytelling. That's true character development.
I'm with you that it is the little mystery boxes that are kind of laying throughout. It does get a little bit old and it does detract from the story because you're right. I feel like I sort of know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. But do I really know what they're doing? They want to stop them from finding Thrawn, or do they want to follow them so that they can rescue Ezra? I don't know.
See, it's just like a blind. It's like all the characters have blindfolds on right now. It's not only Sabine who can't see. None of them can really see what's going on. So it muddles up the process of telling the story. I never dealt with that with Luke Skywalker. Never. Even kid Anakin, I knew exactly who he was and exactly what was motivating him. All of those things. Those are essential. Essential. And the show is called Ahsoka. And we don't get much of Ahsoka in this show. I'll say that right out of the gate. You know, I got more to say about Ahsoka, but I'm going to save it.
Let's do some super chats here. Fart Party. Bringing some cheers, boys, to the party. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Eric from Phoenix, one of our favorites and a longtime friend of the show, and a Patreon VIP, if I know my roster right.
Yeah.
Random thoughts. One. Oh, here's the thing with Eric. By the way, he always has multiple thoughts, and he will enumerate them for you. Sometimes, literally. Random thoughts. One. Still find Hu Yang's blinking distracting. I like Hu Yang's blinking. Just like I like the Ewoks blinking. I'll admit it. I like it.
Provides life to his face, which is largely without articulation.
All right, hold on. Let me think. 3PO never blinks? His lights
3PO does blink. It's one time, and it's an accidental thing where the power supply got briefly cut off. It's when he discovers R2 in the Jedi Sandcrawler. He goes, R2? And he gets up, and when Anthony got up at that moment, the little plug that lights up his light, it temporarily got snagged, and so it looks like he's blinking. And
it is you.
But I mean, it's like he's blinking in a moment of disbelief, like I can't believe my eyes. It's R2D2. It's such a beautiful thing, and I've seen fans who go back and try to fix the original trilogy, and they fix that part. Like, what are you guys doing?
It's one of those happy accidents where it's like he's doing a double take.
Yeah. Why fix that?
I like it.
Is the same way, It's the only thing that really provides life and emotion into his face. Otherwise, it's just this metal face that has little articulation or expression.
By the way, I like Hu Yang a lot.
I do too.
After the third episode, I'm excited. I like when he's on screen.
Great.
He's written really well and he's performed really well. Number 2, anyone else think the actress who portrays Shin Hati looks like Scarlett Johansson? Yeah, I could see that. Not favorite episode, but still a lot to like. Okay, Eric, thank you very much, sir. Who else we got? More from Fart Party. As an 80s kid,
I did
I'm
like
loving
this episode a lot, I have to say. And a lot of people are complaining about the runtime and everything, and I get that because you want to settle in and you want to have an idea how much content you're going to be getting. But I just thought this was just a great episode, and I was never once upset or concerned with the runtime at all. I felt like this whole episode packed a big punch. Back to Fart Party.
Fart Party says, as an 80s kid, I'm loving. By the way, did you hear Hati pronounce Marrok? She had Marrok. It's like but it's like almost like a Klingon. Marrok.
Oh, stop. Don't do
Marrok.
Marrok.
I'm loving Marrok's Snake Eyes look more and more. Might be my favorite new character design in years. And by the way, there's an action figure on its way for Marrok. So you can get that. I already have it. And it's my Snake Eyes figure.
So many people are saying Marrok, Galen Marrok, Starkiller from The Force Unleashed. Oh, look, there's Sam Witwer's name in the credits for additional dialogue and voice performance. So people are like going, oh my God, Sam's there to voice Marrok, and that's going to be Marrok from The Force Unleashed. I've said this, I don't know how many times in the last week. I wouldn't look into it too much. Right there, you see Marrok is played by a guy named Paul Darnell. Now, we finally heard Marrok speak in this episode, so I got real curious. Is that Sam's voice? So I took it in the Sound Lab. I didn't have much time to spend in the Sound Lab today, unfortunately. But I ran it through some of the processes and whatnot, and really couldn't decide. They did a real good job with the vocal processing on Marrok. But when I sped it up, when I put the helium in it and everything to try to deconstruct it and find the real voice hidden within, what I heard didn't sound like Sam Witwer. I just want to say that. It was nothing that I felt was strong enough that I could replay on the show. Wait, do I still have it? Hold on. Let me see if I still have it. No, maybe I do, but then I have to turn that off, and I don't want to do that. Let me see what I can do to play this for you.
Okay.
because I did this earlier today. I can't do it.
You could send it to me.
No, I can't even do
You
that.
can't do that.
I can't even do that. It's in software that I'm using to record myself right now.
Oh God, no!
You can't extract it without stopping the recording. But believe me, there was really nothing to hear there outside of what we heard. But when I sped it up a little bit, I was not hearing Sam's voice. There was nothing in the tone that made me think of Sam Witwer, but I could be wrong. It's so heavily processed. I think it's Paul Darnell, quite honestly. He got the credit.
Adam says, I think Ahsoka is a gray Jedi and Baylan is a dark Jedi. They both use the training of the Jedi, but do not follow the ways of the Jedi. One uses their abilities for good and one for selfish reasons.
Mm-hmm. So to imply gray Jedi is to imply that this is a Force user who's tapping into both the dark side and the light side. I don't see Ahsoka doing that. I see Ahsoka being a strict adherent to the light side of the Force. We all know that once you travel down the path to the dark side, forever will it dominate your destiny. And Ahsoka is not a candidate for that whatsoever. She's not a gray Jedi. She's a former Jedi and a Force user.
Well,
but
just
she
like
doesn't
Kanan
believe.
Jarrus was a former Jedi.
Right.
And
That
his
doesn't make
training
him a
was
gray
never
Jedi.
officially completed.
But wait, Kanan never became a knight, right?
I don't believe so.
He was all.
No,
he was
we saw him
as a child.
We saw him as a child in Bad Batch.
Right.
Right
He
after
was not
Order
a very
66.
strong Jedi.
No,
Kanan,
he was
even,
not.
As he grew, despite not having the training, he wasn't a very strong Jedi to begin with. He had difficulty training Ezra. He got blinded by Darth Maul at a very, in an advanced age for Darth Maul too. Darth Maul wasn't in his prime at all.
It was the old master years for Darth Maul.
Right. And he still was able to defeat Kanan. And Kanan acted like a complete moron in the presence of the Bendu. Like just an idiot. So I don't know. I mean, I could go into greater detail why I think Kanan was acting like an idiot, but I'm not prepared to do that.
We'll save that for the Rebels rewatch.
But go back and watch his interactions with Bendu, and it's like, what happened to Kanan? Kanan in season 3 of Rebels just, I don't know. I mean, it's tough being blinded at the end of season 2, but my God, did he just become totally impotent at that point? And was not a very fun character, I don't think. But that does underscore the fact that he's not a proper Jedi. And he was trying to train Ezra, and he wasn't in the position to do that.
Yeah, what's going to be the fallout of all this? You got Ezra out there. He hasn't been properly trained. Ahsoka is trying to train Sabine. You've got Skull out there and Shin Hati. So you've kind of got these faux Jedi in a way. They're not
Jedi.
They are maybe faux Jedi, or maybe I'm falling into the dogmatic trap of the old ways. And
maybe
that's something that Ahsoka is perhaps fighting against. N64 Rescue says, I feel bad for Mon Mothma. I don't know. I mean, she's got that goofy husband.
Is he still in the picture at this time?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think we're going to see their relationship bust up in season 2 of Andor.
Rich Brendel says, thanks, guys, for amazing work in Filoni. We trust. Thanks, Rich, longtime friend of us here at Rebel Force Radio. Let's take a call. How about that? We've got
let's do that.
We've got a Patreon member here, of course. Tanner on the line. Tanner from Denver joining us here. Hey, Tanner. Hey, shut, my man. What's going on? Yeah, who's calling exactly?
Not much. This is Tanner from Denver.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was you or the dog that was calling the show.
Sorry, I was grabbing my notes going into another room.
Oh, your call takes notes. Oh, man.
Yeah, he's
Strap in, guys. Here we go.
Tanner's got the
Oh,
notes.
yeah. So I just wanted to call with a couple of things. I was at the Lucasfilm panel at Celebration, and they had 2 lines that they used to describe Filoni's movie that I think really will tie into Ahsoka and kind of what's to come. So I wanted to get your take on this. So when they announced Filoni's new movie, the 2 lines that I kind of wrote down were the final stand of the Empire and Empire versus New Republic. So I think Ahsoka, out of all the Filoni Favreau shows, is going to be the one heading into that. It started with the crawl. It seems like a larger scale conflict. I feel like Thrawn won't come in until the last couple of episodes, and he won't be defeated. He'll be set up kind of winning going into the movie. And yeah, just wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility with this strike that this could be the lead. This could end up being the lead into the Filoni film. We'll see. I don't know that they're going to get anything other than another season of Andor out before these filming deadlines start to loom.
Skeleton Crew's in the can. Acolyte is almost completed.
Skeleton Crew, yes. Acolyte isn't going to have anything to do with the Filoni film.
Well, yeah, right. That's
but yeah, Skeleton Crew, yeah, that's a possibility. So maybe, yeah, if that ties in. So, but that could be it for Ahsoka, really. So we could leave Ahsoka at the end of this season where she's going to emerge into the Filoni film.
Yeah, I think you're right on.
Yeah,
I think Tanner's right on.
Yeah.
And I think Skeleton Crew is going to be kind of a smaller scale story. And this one, like, Thrawn's going to come back. He's going to do everything he's threatening to do. And we're really going to see the fall of the New Republic with the faults that have been kind of displayed in these last couple of seasons.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it. I also agree with what you're saying about Thrawn not appearing until maybe the final few episodes. Look at Moff Gideon. In every season of The Mandalorian, he only shows up at the end. He only shows up in the final 2 or 3 episodes. And that's been consistent.
That's right. That's right.
And Thrawn is being set up to be the big bad of maybe future Star Wars streaming shows, maybe Skeleton Crew, or maybe the Filoni film itself. And I think all of those are very possible. So it's, as you can see, it's a gradual rollout for Thrawn. He was first mentioned in season 2 of The Mandalorian, mentioned again in season 3 of The Mandalorian. Now he's been mentioned a lot in the first 3 episodes of Ahsoka. So it's a very, very gradual rollout for Thrawn.
I think they gotta save him for the end. I think they're
going to save him for the end.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's the grand finale.
Yeah. And then he'll really get down and dirty in future series or films, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Tanner. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it very much. There goes Tanner. All right. How about, oh my goodness, we got to get this in. It's getting late, especially when it's a school season. Oh my. It's time for Blake's Take.
Blake's Take. Blake's Take.
Hey,
Party on.
Chut, buddy. All right. Lay it on us, man. What did you think? Part 3.
I thought it was pretty good. The whole space fight, how Ahsoka goes out of the ship and is cutting up, and she just grabs her lightsaber and just slices the ship right up, and she's gone.
Yeah, and she was gone. You know, that was the only time she was funny so far in these 3 episodes, where she makes a little quip to Sabine, like, okay, I'm next, come get me, or whatever it is. And I got a little chuckle out of that. But that's the only time she's really had any kind of remotely glib or funny comment.
Yeah. That is the only time.
Yeah, she's a little serious.
Actually, like to where she's not been serious.
Yeah.
Like she just was just being funny.
Right. She's very serious. So, what do you think about this whole debate we've been having about Jedi and who's a Jedi, who's not a Jedi? Do you need innate force abilities or force power, or is it just about the training that you get? What's Blake's take on that?
I feel like if you know how to use the lightsaber and you can work with the lightsaber, not work against it, just like how with the darksaber with Mando, he had to work with the darksaber. He had to get with it to be able to use it properly.
Yeah, it kind of had to become a part of him.
Be like a Jedi.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because if you can like master that, then you can probably be able, like, the more and more training you do, you'll eventually maybe unlock the Force. You'll be able to learn how to use it all the way.
Right. And Sabine, she in Rebels, she used was it Ezra's lightsaber, or was it the dark sabers that she was wielding? She was doing some training in Rebels. Yeah. Yeah.
She had Ezra's saber. She was using a green saber. At first, she was using a wooden stick.
Right.
And then she was using the green saber. And then.
Yeah, because they were
Do
training.
I have that right? I don't know if I have that right.
Yeah, they were training on Lothal.
Yeah.
Right.
Whenever she was training. Because right before Ahsoka, I finished Rebels. I did an entire rewatch.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, that's helpful. I mean, Filoni says you don't need to, but I think it's pretty helpful. Yeah, especially if you're going to...
I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I found it helpful, like, to remember.
Yeah.
Everything, since it's been a while since I've watched Rebels.
Right. Yeah. Blake, have you ever been sitting there at breakfast and looking at your cup of orange juice and just tried to, use the Force powers, bring it in? Come on, be honest. Have you tried to do that like Sabine was?
Yes.
Okay, maybe once or twice, but...
I won't ask you if it worked ever. I won't ask you that.
Well, who hasn't looked at that remote control for the TV sitting across the room? You're on the sofa. You're just like, please, 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 please.
Hear me.
And also, I try to use the Force at red lights sometimes. Green.
Oh.
Green.
Hey, even Ewan McGregor says that when he goes into those electronic doors in the stores, he always gives a little 2-finger push away. Hey, if Ewan can do it.
Yeah, I do that. Like whenever we walk in the Walmart and stuff, like I'll use my 2 fingers and act like I'm opening the door.
Nice. I guarantee you're the only Jedi in that place. Trust me.
No doubt. Well, what else, Blake, jumped out at you in this episode? What is what are you looking forward to going into the next one? What really got you excited?
About basically, there's like a lot of stuff that just has me excited to see what's gonna happen in the next episode, because we know Thrawn is gonna be in the show.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
Because he's in the trailers, but we're not so sure about Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
He could have died. He could, but knowing Disney and Star Wars, all that, they're not gonna kill off Ezra.
Right.
So I think that, so you know how in the council meeting thing with Hera, they told Hera that she can't send an attack force.
Right. Yes.
But the same thing kind of happens in Rebels. She's not allowed to send an attack force, but she does it anyways. And she ends up winning the fight, but then, yeah. So I feel like since Zeb is working with Captain Teva.
Captain, Teva.
In that force.
Right.
Yeah, Teva. Whenever
and Wolf,
he's working with that force,
he's hanging out at the bar.
She might call up him and ask for help with an attack force.
I think you're...
If Zeb hears that it's to help find Ezra, he will be on board.
That's a good connection to remember, the fact that Zeb is hanging out there in the in the barracks at that base, and that it's likely that Ahsoka and Sabine are going to need some rescuing here pretty soon. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be Hera riding in on the Ghost, maybe with Zeb co-piloting, Chopper making all kinds of racket, and we'll get the closest that we can get of a full reunion there, with the exception of Ezra and Kanan. But I think maybe Ahsoka is sort of the stand-in for Kanan, you might think. But Anyway, hey, Blake,
Yeah.
thanks, buddy.
I guess I could still do it.
Yeah, appreciate the call, bud. Thanks for always being here for us. We'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right, see ya.
All right, buddy. See ya. There goes Blake. Some more super chats here. Super. Where are we at?
Super chat.
Oh,
Where
Star
you
Wars
at?
Rhymes. This is from Dom. Dom says, I love how in the Andor timeline, the rebellion is rising right under the Empire's nose, and in the Mando timeline, the First Order is rising right under the New Republic's nose. Thanks, guys. Yeah, the First Order.
Are they even like a thing at this point? I think the First Order comes out of the desperation that occurs when this attempt to bring back the Empire with Grand Admiral Thrawn in charge, when that finally goes belly up, which we know it will, then I think all the Imperial forces scatter out to the unknown regions. And that's when they regroup and build a plan to return as the First Order. That's what I think. I don't think the First Order is a thought on anyone's mind in this moment. I think it's all about bringing back the Empire.
All right. Well, let me throw this at you. Where's Palpatine, and what's he doing at this time?
He dead, but his spirit lives on somewhere on Exegol, but it can't take a physical form yet because they're trying to develop a clone that would be capable of harnessing his dark side powers and force abilities. So he's kind of out in the ether, maybe.
Not a factor at this point.
He had the system on Exegol well underway during the time of the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff didn't get established after he died. He's the one who set all that up as part of his grand plan. So that's already happening, but I don't think that.
But as far
is
as a
necessarily-
Palpatine connection to Thrawn, I'm not seeing it.
No, nobody
not
knows
seeing it.
Palpatine. Nobody has any awareness of the potential return of Palpatine. I think it's generally thought of that he died when the Death Star 2 exploded.
Right. Because I know, with Gideon and the cloning, we were thinking that this was an effort to get in the good graces of Palpatine, that they were doing this for Palpatine. That doesn't seem to be the case at all. Having seen it, I think he was just doing this for himself, to create power for himself. And
well, maybe
Palpatine
it was. Maybe the technology was there to serve Palpatine. But with Palpatine dead, then Gideon uses it for his own means. That's my theory.
Right. I like that theory. I like it. Let's see. We've got Rob. Oh, Rob says, is Filoni against flashbacks? Just a few would add some much needed emotion and explanation behind Ahsoka's, Sabine's, and Hera's motivations. I think we're going to get them. I think you just need to be more patient. Maybe even in the next episode. I think there's going to be some downtime between Sabine and Ahsoka on that ship as they're hanging out there on Denab. And I think there might be some opportunities for them to do some more training, and maybe you might get some flashbacks there. But
we do know that Ahsoka has a showdown with Baylan's skull on Denab in that Stonehenge sort of observatory type thing they have set up there. Because
that's on
we've seen it.
Cetos.
Oh, that is on Cetos.
That's on Cetos.
Oh, it's so confusing.
It
Well,
is
no,
confusing.
I think Cetos is the planet. Denab is the system. That's what's going on here. We're in the Denab system, but the planet is Cetos. Am I don't know. I need the chat for this one. I that's what I assume.
We're tagging in the chat.
Yeah.
So if you know, I thought Denab was the planet that they land on. They sort of have that emergency landing. Something we haven't talked about. Here it is. Here's a good shot of the trees, the red foliage on the trees. Really cool setting. I like it a lot. But I'm just thinking next week there might be some downtime for more training and more, and might lend itself to some flashbacks. Something we didn't talk about are these guys and how impressive were they in live action. The Pergil, referred to in my subtitles as star whales, whereas I had always referred to them as space whales. But according to the closed captions, there's star whales here. Had to. So kind of like star puffs, you know, Princess Leia's star puffs. But anyway, I thought they were beautiful. And this, I'm starting to put this together a bit that, you know, these migration routes lead the way to the other galaxy. And I made a statement last week saying, oh, well, they need all of those, they need that big Eye of Sion and all of those hyperspace engines. They need 6 of them in order to make this journey to this other galaxy. And now I'm like, no, what they need it for is to bring Thrawn back. They want to bring the Super Star Destroyer back. The Chimera, it's a hyperspace ring for a Super Star Destroyer. But here's my question. Can't he just get in another ship? Why does he have to bring the whole damn Star Destroyer with him?
You know, it's a Star Destroyer, you know.
Well, I guess it would come in handy.
If you're going to bring the Empire back, you need more than just a dude. You got to have some hardware with him.
Wouldn't it? So the guy was just waiting around for them to have the technology to bring his ship with him?
Well, no, I don't think he was just waiting around. I don't think it's a case like that. I think he's looking for the technology that will be able to bring him back to the galaxy which he belongs in. So
yeah, I don't think
like
it's but I don't think it's a technology thing. It's a path. They needed the map. They've got the map.
Yeah, they need the path, and they need the Pergils because the Pergils are the ones who have blazed that trail.
Yeah, I think they're just going to follow these Pergils.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
By the way, Eric from Phoenix does confirm that the Denab system was a star system located in the Seleucus sector that contained. Oh, wait, it says contained the planet Denab. Yeah, but you're looking at expanded universe stuff. In current canon, the Denab system is a star system that contained the planet Cetos. And that's where the Eye of Sion was constructed. On the planet Cetos, or within the orbit of the planet Cetos, which is in the Denab system.
Todd writes, I think the Chimera was just an Imperial Star Destroyer, not a Super Star Destroyer. Todd, this is why you don't have any friends.
No, I think he's right. Isn't he right?
I know.
Oh.
That's why you don't have any friends either, Mac.
That's why none of us have friends. Because we know stuff like this. We know where the planet Cetos
Swank
is.
calling it a Super Star Destroyer. Please.
Oh, how dare you,
Oh.
I've made that mistake in the past, too. For some reason, I held on to the knowledge all these years after reading Heir to the Empire and the Thrawn trilogy. For some reason, I had the notion that the Chimera was a Super Star Destroyer. But that was proven incorrect in Star Wars Rebels, where we see the Chimera for the first time.
Todd says, nice. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
All right, let's take another call. Let's see. We've got another Patreon from Georgia. It's Marty's on the line. Hello, Marty. Marty.
Hey, chut, fellas.
Hey,
how you guys
chut.
doing?
All right.
Marty.
Definitely enjoyed the episode. I appreciate how you guys talked about how it was very reminiscent of Clone Wars and Rebels, just with you have someone walking out on the wing of a starship in outer space with a lightsabers deflecting lasers. That was just cool to see. Just that whole visual.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was super exciting. Definitely love seeing Mon Mothma. The one thing, and this might just be me holding out hope, I really want Marrok to be Marrok and it to be Star Killer, just because I played the Force Unleashed, both of them. I loved them. And, I was someone who, as soon as I saw Sam Witwer in the credits, I was like, that's got to be him.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking it could either be I got 4 possibilities on who Marrok could be. He's either a nobody, in which case, whatever. Star Killer, Ezra, or my wild card is if it's Barriss Offee from Clone Wars, because we don't really know her fate, because I think she was just arrested, not killed during Order 66.
Marrok isn't giving me Lady Jedi vibes.
No, and the other characters have referred to him with masculine pronouns, so I think it's pretty clear he's a dude.
But the idea that it's Ezra that keeps resurfacing, boy, that would be that'd be the ultimate bait and switch, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I'm just kind of like, if he's out on the Star Destroyer with Thrawn, then that's just the big theories I've heard about it recently of who Marrok could be. But I don't know. I'm excited. The show is great. I definitely at first thought, I was like, wish I got a little bit more, because I could tell when you guys mentioned when it just shows Baylan fading out, like, oh, it's going to end here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to end. There it goes. But
there you go.
Really enjoyed it. And I like seeing Jason. That was a cool Easter egg. So enjoying the show greatly, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for the call.
Let me talk about Marrok for a second, though.
Okay.
I find it hard to believe that a character who was mega powerful with the Force, somebody who was like deep into the dark side, deeply steeped in the dark side, who served under Darth Vader himself and was an actual member of the Empire. I find it hard to believe that character would be subservient to the character who's subservient to Baylan Skoll, who is subservient to Morgan Elsbeth. I mean, really? You think the Star Killer, who has the Force unleashed within him, is 4th on this totem pole of bringing the Empire back? No way. No way. He'd have to be more assertive and more respected than that. This Marrok seems largely like just a goon so far. Now, granted, very little has been revealed about him, and we finally did get to hear him speak this episode. But
when's the last time we as fans had all these cool theories about who somebody is, and it turned out to be something cool? Like, I mean, it never happened. Never.
It never happens.
The closest thing we got was Fulcrum being Ahsoka. And they didn't string us along for very long on that.
And
that was resolved pretty quick. Yes. Right. So
I was the first to refer to Ahsoka as Fulcrum, though, and I know that those guys at Lucasfilm heard me say that. I know it. And that's why they named her Fulcrum. It's all because of me. But here's the other thing.
Just to make this clear, you're talking about referring to the character of Ahsoka as a fulcrum in the story.
As a fulcrum between the prequels and the original trilogy.
Yes.
As her role was being unveiled in Rebels.
Yeah.
But, or no, it was actually way before that. It was during Clone Wars. My other theory about Marrok not being Galen Marrok is the fact that, has a character ever made the transition from video game to live action, or even animation for that matter? It seems like video game characters stay locked in the video game. Now, the only character I think who has the potential to really become a live action Star Wars star is Cal Kestis. That's why he says that's why Jimmy has no friends. I don't know if you noticed, but 383 people are currently watching the live stream. So I think I got a couple of friends,
including Todd, who's here all the time.
And I'm Todd's friend as well. So it would have to take some real mental gymnastics in my head to make this character become Star Killer, because he just doesn't have it. It could happen. I mean, I'm not ruling it out altogether. And actually, I would like to see it, quite honestly.
All right, let's go back to the phones. We've got John calling from New York. Hey, John, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello,
Johnny.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing great.
For the show. Hope you guys can't hear my fan in the background. Real quick, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Turtle Wars. I really appreciated and enjoyed this weekend, this past week's episode of RFR Q&A. You guys did an excellent job. Dude, who would have thought Turtles and Star Wars? Like, doesn't get any better than that. So really great episode of Q&A. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because I never know what I'm going to get into with these Q&A shows. And me and Chris had never done a show before. And he's known to members in the RFR community as Turtle Wars. And yeah, I bet you didn't think for a second there'd be a connection between Turtles and Star Wars. But Chris delivers. He delivers all that information to us in the episode. So that's the latest episode of RFR Q&A. It's a Patreon exclusive show. You can only get it if you're a member of Patreon. Every Patreon supporter from $1 up to $50, they all get RFR Q&As. You get access to all 177 episodes. If you're an RFR All Access supporter, you get full show video too of each episode of RFR Q&A. They come out every week. And if you like what you're hearing at on Rebel Force Radio, and you want to make sure that this show is around for the long haul, give us some support over at Patreon, and you will find so much content there. It'll keep you busy for a really long time. So that's patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Thanks, John. Let's get back to what you had to say.
Yeah, no worries. Jimmy Mac, you ain't lying. If you're not subscribed to Patreon Rebel Force Radio, you're doing it wrong. But I was gonna ask you guys how.
Did we lose him?
I
his call dropped.
Something. I thought maybe I just lost him, but I guess we did.
No, shoot, John. Sorry, your call dropped.
John, call back. Tyler, be on the lookout for John's call, and be sure to put him at the front of the line when he calls back, so we can hear what he had to say. His dime must have run out on the payphone or something while I was talking about Patreon. But
well, let's talk to Luke from Florida, also a Patreon member. Hey, Luke. You're going to get that, wouldn't you?
Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, Luke, before you start, I have it on good authority, Jimmy Mac. My sources say that there have been no characters specifically created for a Star Wars video game that has made a direct appearance in a Star Wars movie or TV show.
No, none that I can think of. The only time, like, they mentioned Terrace Kasi in the Solo film, so that was a shout out to a Star Wars video game.
Doesn't count.
Other than that,
I didn't see
I know that doesn't count. I'm talking about fully transitioning the characters from video game to live action or animation, and it's never happened.
All right, John, what do you got? Or I'm sorry, Luke. I'm thinking of John. Poor John. We lost John.
Luke.
That's okay. I wanted to echo John and say Billy Bats and the Made Men. Great music recommendation from Turtle Wars. I love that band title, and it's some great music.
So Chris, Turtle Wars on the Q&A, he introduced me to his YouTube channel where he shoots a lot of concert videos at clubs that he goes to in South Carolina. And a name of one of the bands that he likes to go see is Billy Bats and the Made Men. I thought, wow, what a great, I can't wait to tell Swank that band name. Billy Bats and their kids.
For Billy Bats.
Kids too. Yeah, so good. I'm glad you brought that up, Luke.
Great name.
Luke.
My Star Wars question tonight, though, for you guys, for you gentlemen, is who's Thrawn going to kill? I just want to get right down to it. He's a bad guy. We're setting him up to be. I think as much as we love her and they're setting her up to kind of be our new favorite, I think Sabine might be X'd out of the cast.
Really?
I don't know. That's my prediction. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay.
Dave is no longer making a cartoon with this. This is his first full step into live action. With fully holding the reins, and I think it might be a good way to go. But I wanted to get your thoughts.
Wow.
Well, what would introduce the Empire is back for reals again? What would introduce that better than the assassination of Mon Mothma? Think about that.
Whoa.
You know, Sabine's small
That could happen,
potatoes.
too.
Yeah.
Sabine's small potatoes in the big picture. Mon Mothma, she's got a huge target on her back and has for several decades at this point. What would reintroduce the Empire to the galaxy with more impact than killing Mon Mothma, assassinating the Chancellor of the New Republic?
Yeah, anything else would be small ball. That's what you got to do. You got to take out the head of the snake. As Thrawn would see it. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm with Mac.
Thank you guys so much for taking my call.
Yeah, buddy. Anytime. Thanks for calling.
I do predict Sabine will kill Shin. That's my prediction.
Sabine will kill. Yeah, she's got to have
that is if Shin
rematch.
doesn't flip-flop. But now we're 3 episodes in, and we're not really spending any time with these exiled Jedi or whatever these orange bladed force users. I don't even know what the hell to call these cats. But
mercenaries.
I still believe that if we spend more time with Shin and Baylan, that we'll start to discover there's friction between the two of them, and sooner or later Baylan will do something that will make Shin walk away from him for good, and then she'll seek vengeance on him. That's my theory, or it's my prediction.
All right, we got another first-time caller here and a Patreon. We got David from Arkansas. Hey, David, what's happening?
Chut, guys. How's it going?
All right.
Yeah, I'll try to make this somewhat quick. I thought this was a really great episode in which Dave Filoni kind of, I don't know if he tried to settle a debate that's been going on necessarily about Jedi and who can be a Jedi and who can't. But I thought he really gave some great information on that. You know, there's been a long-standing debate on midichlorians, and I know some people really don't like that idea. But I thought he gave some great information about, you know, who can be a Jedi, and that I think it really parallels, for example, who is or who is not a great athlete. I think he made a distinction between being able to have a lot of talent, but maybe not a lot of discipline. And then some people may have a little bit less talent, but a ton of discipline, and still be able to make it really far in that. So I know this is kind of a topic of debate. I don't really understand why it's such a topic. I think the midichlorians, like you've said before, Jason and Jimmy, are kind of, you know, just a tool for George to use and to help us.
That's exactly that.
Who's a Jedi and who's not.
David, you're exactly right. What it was George needed, and he's been interviewed about this. He's not shied away from it. He's never explicitly said that midichlorians were a prerequisite to being a Jedi. But what he needed was a way to tell the audience that there were Jedi with higher abilities. And at the time of the prequels coming out, the most powerful Jedi we'd been exposed to was Jedi Master Yoda. So how does he tell the audience that this little boy has the potential to be a stronger Jedi than Yoda? Well, even Master Yoda doesn't have a midichlorian count that high. So I mean, that's how he did it. So, but then people have taken that to believe that only, you know, that it's a bloodline thing and only high midichlorians. You're 100% right. It was just a storytelling device. It was a shortcut, basically.
And I got news for you. Yeah. Everyone has a midichlorian count. Right. Everyone has a midichlorian count, not just Jedi. Everyone has it. And I think the balance of the Force is something that is more important to people being able to tap into the Force. I think if the Force is in balance, then more people can access the Force and more people can train successfully to use it. The more balanced it is, the more accessible it becomes for good people to tap into the light side of the Force. And, you know, people are inherently good for the most part. So that would mean the vast majority of the population would be able to tap into the light side of the Force should the Force be in balance. So You put the Force in balance, and then anyone can use it. And that can never happen because there's always going to be bad people tapping into the Force to use it for evil, to use it for selfish things, even if they're not, trying to be evil. People do evil things to protect, to protect their possessions, their loved ones, their freedom. I mean, there's all kind of things that people can do to tap into the Force and use it for like a nefarious reason, but or is it nefarious? I said nefarious.
Depends on where you come from.
I guess it does.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to a nefarious reason, you see. And no, but that's what I think is more important for like just anyone to use the Force. I think the Force needs to be balanced by the light side.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the call, buddy. Got some more super chats. We've got to get to these. We want to get to these. Let's go and start with how about Dave? Dave says 3 episodes in and still no puffer pigs. Come on, Filoni. Love the Ahsoka show. And RFR, as always, #1. Thank you very much. Pistol Pete, catch you on the rewatch. May the Force be with you, RFR. No problem, Pete. We know that. Not everybody had a chance to watch it. Do appreciate the download on the podcast. If you're listening and watching this on YouTube and aren't aware, we do have a audio podcast that you can subscribe to. We've been doing it for like 15 years plus. So check it out on your favorite podcatcher. John Lowe.
15 years a few years ago, and Jason just like capped it off at that. Yeah, it's been 15 years.
15 years. Well, it's a miles. We haven't been there 20 yet.
September, Labor Day weekend, Swank. Is
my
the anniversary of the first podcast.
That's right.
Back in 2006.
17 years. Yeah.
What a long, strange trip it's been.
For the love of Pete, does Shin Hati ever blink? I don't know.
Pete was the original host back in 2006. That's amazing how that just happened like that.
That is crazy. And for the love of Pete, does Shin Hati ever blink? Loving the series. Great after show, gents. I haven't really. Yeah, Mac doesn't blink. Never seen him blink.
She does have bug eyes, and they're kind of like creepy bug eyes too. So no, she doesn't blink. Huang does. Shin doesn't.
David says, love the RFR after shows. I'm coming in late. Did we talk about Marrok being Sam Witwer's voice, maybe Star Killer? We did.
It's not.
We did. We debunked it. We debunked it.
It could be his voice,
David.
but I really don't think it is. I think it's the actor who is playing Marrok. What's his name? Paul something or another?
Yeah, it's Paul. What's his name?
But I tried to deconstruct the vocal processing they put on the voice.
Paul
and maybe
Darnell.
when we're done here, I'll try a little more because I didn't really have much time today. But and so if I do get to a point where I deconstruct the voice, you'll hear it this week on the weekly show. So I'll follow up. I'll definitely follow up. And I'll let you guys hear what I heard today.
Ferris says, I think we can all agree the missing ingredient so far in Ahsoka is more Wedge.
Well, the cult of Wedge.
Hashtag cult of Wedge. How old is Ahsoka now? Perhaps mellowed with age. I still found her a little lighter, a little bit more Ahsoka-like in Mando and Book of Boba Fett, but maybe that was just the excitement I was feeling of, seeing her. Plus, the circumstances were different, but I don't know.
Brief.
I think she could lighten it up. From the trailers, it was very brief. From the trailers,
Filoni started to change her character quite a bit in that final season of Clone Wars. She became very sullen and, very just...
The birth of Ahsoka?
The birth of Ahsoka. But no, on this show, the way that Rosario's doing it is it's amped up to 1,000 times. And I get it. They're going for a cool, calm, and collected Ahsoka. But I think it largely comes off as dull, detached, and a little creepy because she's always like side-eyeing people and walking around real slowly and just it's certainly not the same Ahsoka we grew to love since 2008. She lacks the spunk. She lacks the energy. She speaks in monotone, side-eyes everyone. So the common argument,
it's this right here, this constantly with the arms
this
crossed,
arm folded and stuff. And I noticed that before the series even debuted. The common argument I receive is, why do you expect her to be exactly the same as she was when she was younger? People change, and she's been through a lot. And usually it's 20-somethings making the argument.
Right, of
I've
course.
known some people my whole life, 50 years. I've known them since they were kids, and they still are able to retain a lot of the personality traits that they had even when they were kids. I still see it in them when I deal with them. So this notion that when you get older, you turn into this entirely different person is complete BS. And I'll tell you, even the show contradicts it, because Sabine does have the integrity of her animated younger self. She also was a teen in Rebels and has grown and gone through a lot. She certainly has. Yet all the proper elements of what made her a popular character remains. And
Right.
that's essential in this thing. You have to maintain the integrity of the character. Where did Ahsoka's personality go? And so I was complaining about this. And, I got some heat. You're supposed to celebrate the things you love, Jimmy Mack. It's like, well, yeah, George Lucas's original trilogy is what brought me here. And I love it. I love it. But I'm not going to just grant unconditional love to a TV show just because it has Star Wars in the title and just because it's featuring a character I've loved since 2008, Ahsoka. I want the integrity of the character to remain. I mean, she doesn't have to be, Sky Guy in this and R2E that and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about personality. And this Ahsoka has none. She has none. I can't see how somebody just getting introduced to this character in this show can find her likable, find her somebody they could root for. I don't see it. She just comes off as creepy. And don't get mad at me for pointing out the obvious and putting it in your head, because it's true. It's true. Before the show started, somebody put in the chat, and I'm not going to out this person, but I thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. He says, I'm starting to think the hyper-reactive, in-the-moment ability to comment on art as it's being produced, developed, and released is an abortion of fandom. So what, we can't even talk about it now?
No, because
we can't react to what we see anymore.
It's because
we have
we're
to
not
walk on eggshells because you don't want to be pointed out.
It's people that can't deal with hearing opinions that are different of their own, from their own. That's all that is. That's a very popular sentiment against people who absolutely wither and wilt when faced with any kind of opposition, especially opposition that's backed up by logic. They just want to shut the conversation down. That's the world we live in. Let's shut down the conversation because it makes me uncomfortable.
Well, that's scary stuff, man. That's scary
Of course it
stuff.
is. Of course it is.
And that's how all kind of bad things end up happening, like book burnings and censorship and all that kind of stuff. It's because people don't want to hear other opinions. And that's not what it's all about.
It must mean your opinion is pretty fragile and your belief in it.
All right, I'm off of that.
All right, here's David.
And I'll say this. Now, wait, I gotta smooth it over. I'm really digging the Ahsoka show.
Okay.
That being said, I'm not really loving the way they're presenting Ahsoka to us. I think Rosario Dawson and Dave Filoni are missing it by a mile. And I don't know what that is. The challenges of presenting this character as live action with all the head tails and prosthetics and stuff, that might have something to do with why Ahsoka acts the way she does. She doesn't have the freedom that animation lent her. Also, yeah, there's some miles on the tank there. She's definitely an older character, but we need to see the evolution. The thing that hurt Luke Skywalker's depiction the most in the sequel trilogy is we never saw him evolve into the mope he was. We never saw that evolution. And here, the same thing is kind of happening with Ahsoka, except we have more references to look at via all the animated show appearances she was in. I don't even consider that Ahsoka novel by E.K. Johnson to be anywhere near my personal canon. I think that book was garbage, and I don't really apply it to the Ahsoka character when I analyze her.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying that so people don't start throwing book excerpts at me. I read the book. I get it.
Are these your final thoughts?
They were going to be.
Okay. All right.
They were going to be. So my final thoughts are probably going to be pretty brief.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say all that because I was starting to get cold feet about actually spitting out all my opinions because I didn't want to lay my abortion of fandom on you. I was starting to get a little intimidated by that, and I didn't want to wait till final thoughts, and so I just unleashed right now because I wanted to make sure I stayed true to myself through this whole process.
That's right.
And what myself is telling me is that there's something very flawed with this approach to Ahsoka's character, and I hope we see it change by episode or part 4, I should say, not episode, part 4.
Part 4.
I want to see something. Give me something. Does this woman even have a heartbeat? The action sequences are outstanding, but we need Ahsoka. You could put anybody in there kicking ass. We need Ahsoka.
Can I read David's comment here? His super chat?
I was hoping you would.
Okay.
Or else I'll keep going.
From the trailers, we know Baylan knew Anakin. Do you think they reveal who Baylan's Jedi Master was? Who do we think it could be based on his age? I don't want to speculate, but I was thinking about Baylan's age, and I would probably put him close to Anakin Skywalker's age, actually. I think they were probably fairly contemporary, which might make it kind of an interesting take on Anakin if, hey, what if the flashbacks for Hayden Christensen are Baylan Skoll's memories and not Ahsoka's memories?
Does Baylan say that everyone knows Anakin, or that he knows Anakin, or just he knew who Anakin was?
Well, I don't know that there's not enough context in the clip, but he does reference that he knows Anakin or knew Anakin. Penguin, unfortunately, I think Hu Yang is going to bite it. I don't know. I think that's still small ball.
He's made it like 10,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
right.
now?
In this conflict.
Why now? And then that would eliminate all male protagonists from this show, which Hu Yang barely even qualifies as. There's not a single male protagonist in this show. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, Star Wars was so male dominated during the original trilogy, yada, yada. But at least we had Carrie Fisher in there.
Right.
This show's giving us nothing and nobody. Not one dude.
Maybe when Ezra comes back, Ezra will bring balance.
Okay, maybe Ezra will bring balance. To the world.
Ferris84, big Clone Wars plus Rebels vibes. Low Heir to Empire trilogy vibes. Thoughts? Prediction? Marrok is the new Knights of Ren, a fancy donut with no jam inside.
I hope we get to know more about Marrok, though. I hope there's a whole reveal about him that explains what his deal is and why he's running with Baylan and Shin in the first place, and Morgan Elsbeth. I mean, who brought all these people together? What set of circumstances brought these people together? Who are these people? What are they doing here? What's going on?
And who's this guy? She seems to have a bunch of these. These scout guards. That's what I found out they're called. These scout guards.
Are they droids?
They're not droids.
Well, I just assumed that they
droids.
worked with Morgan Elsbeth.
I thought they were droids too, but they're mercenaries.
Oh.
But no, not droids.
Guns for hire.
Guns for hire. All right. We got J. Robert Cipriano with a super chat. Love and appreciate this community. Thanks, man. That means a lot. We love you guys very much, and we're glad that we can come and talk about this stuff and argue about it and just have fun. Turtle Wars riding out the hurricane rains and wind with the RFR after show and shower. Where's the hurricane? Where is this? What did I miss?
Well, there's big storms on like in Florida. He's in South Carolina, all along the lower East Coast. They've boarded up the windows, and it's smacking down on them. So I hope everyone in Florida and out east is safe, and that we get past this one. So, but that's Turtle Wars. You can hear him on RFR Q&A number 177. And yeah, a lot of people have had good things to say about Chris's appearance in the Q&A. It's just a very unique perspective.
And our last super chat here, Chris says, I'm here to hear what you guys have to say. Jason and Jimmy forever. Thanks, man. We really appreciate that very, very much.
It's good.
Oh, yeah.
That's me on base.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us this week. What a thrill it has been, as it always is, to rap about the latest installment in the Star Wars saga together, digesting it. Certainly not a perfect show. What is? There's a lot to love about it. I personally really like the visual storytelling that we're getting out of this. I like that Filoni is not shying away from bringing his roots of animated storytelling, the crazy, wild stuff like a spacewalk, and Ahsoka going toe-to-toe with a spaceship while she's sitting on the wing of her ship, armed with just a lightsaber. That's cool. It's ballsy. We haven't seen it in live-action Star Wars.
Yeah, that was cool.
Tyler, our call screener, very hard at work with some great calls. Tyler, thanks very much, buddy.
Yeah,
you're not Baby Belushi. God,
that's a Baby Belushi.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. Anything that we didn't get to, I know we are remarkably thorough here on the after show, but anything that we might have left unspoken, unmentioned?
Definitely thorough. I think you guys covered all of it, but Jimmy, you were looking for a word for those Sith, not Sith people, and I know in the audio descriptive track they call them false Jedi, at least once.
The false Jedi,
yeah. So I don't know.
Good catch.
A lot of the callers were talking about Sabine. People are wondering, what her character development's going to be like. I think it's cool that they're looking at her and Grogu at the same time because they kind of share a lot of similarities. And then lastly, I feel like Ahsoka's playing like a master role and not an apprentice anymore. And maybe that can help explain why she's being different. When I saw her in Mando, I felt more warmth than I'm seeing now. I can say that.
Yes.
So
agreed, Tyler. Yeah. But, Star Wars is full of stodgy Jedi. Mace Windu, anybody? Even Obi-Wan from time to time. They can't all be Qui-Gon Jinn.
No.
Qui-Gon is the coolest. All right, man. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week, okay?
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks,
you being here, buddy. As always. Yeah, we will be back next week. But before we get into all of that, let's hear some final thoughts from Jimmy Mac.
Did you notice that Shin was wearing the similar headset that the Jedi were wearing in the prequels when they were flying the Jedi starfighters? Did you notice?
Are you asking me?
Most pilots, they wear helmets, they wear flight suits, but Jedi, they just hop into the ship with their robes on, and they wear this little thing on their forehead, and it's like, it gives them a little communication microphone and a headset and everything, but it's got this thing on their forehead. See? And I always thought, like, wow, maybe that thing in their forehead somehow amplifies the Force and their ability to use their starfighters. Because why do just Force users wear that thing when every other pilot has to wear flight suits and helmets? Just something to think about. Puffer Pig, not in this episode.
What?
Yep.
You got
about
me.
As final as my thoughts will ever be. Final and short.
You know something I wanted to mention, because I was grabbing all these great screenshots, and I got to tell you, it's a pleasure to grab these screenshots from this show. And this shot right here, this was just right out of A New Hope when you're looking at the rear view of the cockpit, looking out from the perspective of the characters, and you see the backs of the seats, and just very, very Millennium Falcon.
Right.
Very Han and Leia up there with 3PO in the back, like we saw in Empire as they're going through the asteroid field.
And it's something that George Lucas heavily avoided in the prequels, is presenting us with that sort of Millennium Falcon-esque cockpit scene. As a matter of fact, in the prequels, you don't even get the cockpit perspective once of a ship making the jump to light speed. Isn't that weird?
That's real weird.
Yeah. But now it's all become like Star Wars tropes, and it appears in every show. It appears in Andor, it appears in Ahsoka, it appears in The Mandalorian when he had the Razor Crest. All of that, it's all to echo the Millennium Falcon cockpit.
Yeah.
And George wanted nothing to do with it when he did the prequels. Not once in the prequels do you see them pull back the thing and make the jump into light speed from the cockpit perspective. And I always thought that sucked. So thank you, Filoni and the crew, for making it happen in just about every episode of this show.
I like this view here where you're seeing the Eye of Sion for the first time, and they're trying to figure out what the hell it is. And it's very much, that's no moon. It's a space station.
Right. Liu Yang wants a closer look.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Closer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, closer. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back next week. We'll also be back later this week with Rebel Force Radio, the flagship podcast. That'll be available for you this weekend. I believe it'll drop on Saturday now that we're in after show mode.
Yeah, Saturday mornings. Look for it.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you next time. Big thanks again to Tyler and all the callers this week. Much, much appreciated. Until next time, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.